Alright, so we're going to start talking about ratios first. Okay, so a ratio. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division. A comparison of two quantities by division. A comparison of two quantities by division. So quantities would be just numbers. A comparison of two numbers using division. There are three ways to write this. So three forms. And I'll show you what those are. So I'm going to give you an example. Now we have to start with some data. Okay? The data is going to be about different types of fruit. If you have 5 apples, 7 bananas, and 13 oranges. Okay, that's our data. We're going to write a proportion to show the ratio of apples to oranges. Again, we're writing the ratio of apples to oranges. Order here is extremely important, okay? Sometimes what I do is box in the word to, because that separates my two quantities. So my first quantity is apples. How many apples are there? 5. And I'm still going to use that word to, and oranges is 13. So that is one way to write a ratio, is 5, the word to, and then 13. Another way to write that ratio is instead of using the word to, you can use a colon. 5 colon 13. And the third way to write it is as a fraction, and that's where the division part comes in. 5 over 13. And again, order here is extremely important. The 5 is listed first, the 5 is listed on top in your fraction. That's extremely important because 5 stands for apples, which was listed first in our ratio here. So let's do one more of those. What if I said, using that same data, that I wanted to know the ratio of apples to all fruit? Okay, so again, I'm going to box in that word to, because that helps me separate my two quantities. Apples we know is 5. How would I find all fruit? Add them all together, right? 5 plus 7 plus 13 is 25. So 5 to 25, good question. 5 colon 25, 5 over 25. So if you can reduce it, you can divide them both by something, then you're welcome to do that, but you don't have to do it unless it says to do it, okay? So again, you don't have to simplify unless it says to simplify. But yes, we could make this 1 to 5, 1 colon 5, 1 over 5. But you don't have to do it unless it says. All right, so that's how you write a ratio. Did you do that in 6th grade? Yes. Tommy, question. You have to do it the way that it's stated in the question. It could say it however it wants to say it. It could say the bigger number first, absolutely. Okay? All right, let's talk about what a rate is now. A rate. So a rate is a type of ratio. A type of ratio. So again, a comparison of two quantities. But the difference in a rate and a ratio is that a rate, the two quantities have different units of measurement. The quantities have different units of measurement. So a type of ratio, the quantities have different units of measurement. For instance, if I said that it took 6 hours to drive 288 miles. Okay, if that is our information, that it took 6 hours to drive 288 miles, typically we think of miles per hour, okay? So that would be miles listed first. So 288 miles over 6 hours. That would be a rate. So again, the only difference in a rate and a ratio is that a rate has 2 different units of measurement. Then we could make a unit rate. What do you think a unit rate is? So a unit rate is when your denominator is a 1. A unit rate is when the denominator is a 1. And we can find that by taking the numerator divided by the denominator. A unit rate is the denominator is 1. We can find that by doing the numerator divided by the denominator. So let's use our same information about driving 288 miles in 6 hours. And if I have that rate, then a unit rate would be how much you drive in 1 hour. And again, we find that missing number by doing the top divided by the bottom, which is, anyone? A number. It is, yes. 48 miles. So the rate was 288 miles in 6 hours. The unit rate was 48 miles in 1 hour. So unit rate is what's going to be helpful for us. You see unit rates, if you go to a grocery store, a lot of times on the shelf, it'll have the price of the item, and then it'll tell you how much it is per ounce. Next time you go to the grocery store, kind of look for that. And then you can compare different sized items to see what's the better deal. Okay? All right, any questions about unit rate and before we talk about proportions? All right, so proportions are the last thing that I want to talk about today in notes. All right, proportions are just 2 equal ratios. And the first thing that I'm going to do with these proportions is I'm going to give you 2 ratios, and I want to know if the ratios do make a proportion, if they're equal or not. And the way that we're going to use that is we're going to use cross products. Test by using cross products. All right, so for instance, if I said 6 over 4 and 21 over 14, and I want to know, does this make a proportion? Basically saying, are these 2 things equal to each other? This is the easiest way to do it, and a way that always works is using cross products. And what cross products are, you can use a calculator, don't worry. You're going to do 6 times 14 and get your answer. And then you're going to do 4 times 21 and get your answer. And if the answers are the same, then it is a proportion. Okay? So I know that 4 times 21 is 84. And 6 times 14 is also 84. So because the cross products are the same, then yes, this would make a proportion. Did you do this last year? Okay. Cross products. All right. That's why I'm putting all this stuff together, because I know that you've seen it before. We just kind of need to have review of it. So what about 8 over 24 And 6 over 20. Oh, you're just guessing now? All right, so this would be 120 plus 24, which would be 144. How about just 160? So again, the cross products are different, so no, not a proportion. All right, we okay with testing to see if two ratios are a proportion? All right, last thing we're doing then is solving a proportion, and I'm going to give you two ratios that are equal to each other, and instead of giving you all four numbers, I'm only going to give you three of the numbers, and we have to figure out the fourth number, okay? And we're also going to use cross products to do that. So this is solving proportions. Last thing today. Well, yes, but last thing of notes. All right. So I'm telling you this is a proportion. I'm telling you they are equal, and I want to solve for x. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to find my cross products. And again, yes, you can use calculators, so I encourage you to. 4 times 180. (36 times x would be just 36x. Tommy, you said 720? Right. How do you think we find x? Any ideas? What's your idea? So basically this makes an equation, because I said that if this is a proportion, these cross products are equal. That means the 36x has to be equal to the 720, because again, it's a proportion. So this is just solving a one-step equation. We would divide by this 36, and x equals 20. Okay? So that's how you solve a proportion. You find the cross products, and then you divide to find that missing number. 36 times what? 720? 36 times 20. You want to do one more of these?